Hi and welcome to this week's Life Lessons video. It's great to be back with you all. Are you holding on to issues from your past that are affecting your health and happiness right now? Maybe you're stuck with feelings of injustice or unfairness and you're just not willing to forgive or forget. Or maybe your hurt inner child is stubbornly holding on and just does not want to let go of past issues. Well, in this video, we're going to be explaining why your inner child wants to keep you in the past and what it believes is the payoff for doing this. The healing power of acceptance rather than forgiveness. And most importantly, how you can work with your inner child so that you can finally release old hurt. Welcome to our Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons series. In each episode, we answer your questions, reveal the powerful life lesson, and offer you lots of practical tips and advice to help you live in balance, harmony, and flow. Okay, David, so the question we've had in on this topic is, I can't stop ruminating on the past. How badly I was treated as a young child and my many failed relationships as an adult. I look around me and see all my contemporaries who came from loving homes are successful and are happy. I'm not. I deserve more, especially after my disadvantaged early years. The injustice and unfairness of it all is gnawing away at me. I know this is unhealthy, but I'm stuck with my past and there's nothing I can do to change it. Can you help?
Wow, great question.
It's a great, very powerful question.
It is, and it's one that I deal with my clients pretty regularly, I would say weekly. It's a very powerful thing, and it just shows you the childhood experiences, what a profound effect that has on your belief system, on your thinking, and therefore your life. And when we go through these childhood experiences, how that really affects us on a very deep level. And I think that it's much deeper than we give it credit for. I don't think we realize just how impactful it is, especially on an emotional level, and perhaps even more so on an emotional level. And so this is what we're going to get into in this question, because what she's talking about there is what we class as inner child work. And I'm sure Alex will put up a video link. If you're not sure on what we mean by inner child work, it may be worth you doing. I'll put the
link above.
Maybe worth you doing a little bit of homework on it. Very quickly, what I'm talking about when I talk about the inner child work, it's a part of your mind. It's not separate, but we want to give it a label so we can kind of address it and talk to it and understand it. So it's a part of your mind. In my experience, just my experience, the ages of about 6 to 9 seems to be very relevant here. And it's a part when you were growing up, around that 6 to 9, when things were happening in your life that created a very powerful emotional feeling. In other words, you knew it wasn't right. Couldn't understand what was going on, but it wasn't right. It didn't give you good feeling. It spiritually upset you.
So what sort of typical situations are we talking about here, David?
So here's the thing. It could be very, very, very serious situations such as abuse, physical, emotional, or sexual. But what other people would think were not so serious, split up in a family, moving of house, moving of school, losing friends. It can be a number of things. But for a child, particularly for a sensitive child, something has happened. It can also be one thing, or it can be a series of things that upsets the child. The child is experiencing emotions. They don't understand yet that they are creating the emotions. They believe that the emotions are coming externally into them. Like when you see those films with a rain of arrows come flying in, it's like a rain of emotions come flying in at them. And the child does. The only thing that's really left open for the child to do is to protect themselves. They put up a barrier. They build a wall. And then when the emotions keep coming in, they build the wall higher and higher and higher. So this question is revolving and revolving around that issue. If we had that client here now and we could just ask her a few questions, I would be almost sure that if you looked at that period around 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you would see that things were happening in her life that she didn't understand or couldn't comprehend, and so she turned it as on herself, and then she built the wall.
So if as a child we are mistreated or believe we're mistreated, or we were mistreated, or we believe we were treated unfairly, or we were treated unfairly, we emotionally register that as a child, but we obviously, because we're only a young child, we haven't got the cognitive ability to kind of reason it and think, well, hold on, is this correct? We blame ourselves, as you say. We go into a lockdown and blame ourselves.
Yeah, because I think all children that I meet, I can't say all children, want to please their parents.
Yeah.
They want to be validated and adored and reassured and told them that they're proud of them. And if for any reason, for instance, the parent can't do that because of their own emotional issues, they can't support them in the way that the child believes they should be supported. Or, as this lady said, she looks at her friends at school and they see them going home and their mummy's cooked them a nice cookies and waiting for them and sits down and talks to them. And then when she goes home, she gets problems and arguments and perhaps emotional problems at home. And then the child, and how many times have you heard this? The child says, it's not fair. It's not fair. It's not fair. They're getting something that I'm not getting. I want you to think about that phrase, because how many times have you heard your physical child say that? And how many times have you said that in that part of your mind that we're calling the inner child? And I want you to rebrand and rename to, rather than it's not fair, rename it to, it's not the way I believe it should be. Because that's what the child is saying. This is not the way that I believe it should be. I look at my friends and I see them having a better family life. I see their mum and dad supporting them. I see their dad coming to parents' evening. My dad doesn't even talk to me, or my dad refuses to acknowledge me. And that's not fair. And what she's saying is, it's not the way I want it to be. And for a child, this is immense. And I'm not underestimating this, because a child now is encountering almost a premature life lesson. They're encountering a situation that is really above their pay grade. They haven't got the cognitive reasoning to reason out that perhaps their mother and father have got their own emotional issues. Why would a child think that? Because most children think that whatever their parents say, ask yourself this, you know, what your parents say, is it always true? Now, you probably know now as an adult it wasn't true, and you can probably see, and you're a parent yourself, and you realise that it wasn't true. But as a child, you believe every word that comes out of your parent's mouth is probably the truth and should be listened to. And more so, you should try and please your parents or placate your parents. So when they're unhappy, the parents will maybe even blame you. Well, if it wasn't for you, if you wasn't here, if I didn't have all these kids around me, I'd be happy. And then you start to blame yourself. It must be me. There must be something wrong with me. I'm not living up to their standards. And this is what creates all the problems that this lady's
so
saying.
there's kind of two things going on here, David. There's the belief as a child that the problem is caused by me, there's something wrong with me. But also the child thinks it's not fair, it's unfair, it's unjust, this is not the way I want things to be. So there's two things going on. So it's almost like they feel like there's a slight tension between the two, because one of them saying it's all my fault, and the other's saying, well, it's all their fault, it's all the external world's fault. Is that a normal?
No. What they're saying is it's my fault because if I was this perfect child, then everything else would be all right.
So the world would be just.
The world
there
would be
just. Fairness.
There would be fairness.
I would get what I want.
My parents would be happy with me at all the time because I would deliver what they wanted. I would be this perfect child. I would not backchat. I would do what they want. But the problem is you can't do what they want. You can't be that perfect child because that perfect child doesn't exist. That's what I said. It's the way that they're thinking is incorrect. But we can't blame the child because the child is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They can't blame the child because they haven't got that reasoning developed yet. And so it ends up that the child, I call it the vow, VOW, the child says something very powerful to themselves. They said, it must be me. The fault lies with me. I'm faulty. There's something wrong with me. And when you have that belief, that I find with a lot of my clients is what I call the core belief. When you dig down, when you do the golden thread, which I'm sure we'll talk about, go down all the why, I'm not good enough, I can't cope. But when you get down to the core, what they're saying is there's something faulty in me. I am not awesome. I am not divine. I am missing something. I have to do something. I have to earn love. I have to earn validation. I have to work hard. And if I don't get it, it's not their fault. It's my fault because I haven't worked hard enough. So the child has almost, I call it, put the cart in front of the horse. They've got their thinking round the wrong way. They believe that they have to earn this validation. And so constantly, all of the time, as this lady says, they're looking the rest of their life because their filter is set up. They're looking for this validation, this reassurance. They're looking to be told that they're loved, that they're worthy. And then it's never enough, is it? It's like a drug. The Chinese call it chasing the dragon. It's almost like you can never be validated quite enough. You can never be loved quite enough. And then as she gets older, she says, it's very difficult to have a relationship because even if your partner tells you that you're gorgeous, that they love you, that they want to be with you, there's that little voice, the inner child, we call it, going, do they really mean it? Are they going to change their mind? And then they start playing this really toxic game of testing them. Let me give them a test. Let me just test them. Let me just test them. Oh, they passed. Well, let me test them a little bit more. And then this becomes all the stuff we talk about in all our videos, the carousel of despair, the maze of
emotional
confusion.
Strategies, manipulations. So I just want to be absolutely clear on this. For most of your clients, what you're saying is when they're young, typically between the ages of 6 and 9, something happens to them that gives them strong emotional red light feelings, uncomfortable or painful feelings. Or a series of things.
Or an environment.
So that could be abuse, very strong issues. It could be bullying. It could be upset in the family, new siblings being favoured over you, or you looking at your friends thinking, well, their parents treat them better than my parents. Moving school, a whole host of things which create the red light feelings. That child then blames themselves. It must be me, gives themselves the vow. And the child also then creates this pervasive sense of unfairness and injustice. If I was a good girl or if I was a good boy, then everything would be right. The world would be nice. People would love me. People would care for me. I'd be enough for my parents, whatever.
Just one more step there. And then the child's trying hard, as hard as they can, but they can't put it right. So that's when they say it's not fair. I'm trying harder than my friends, for instance, and they get what I don't get. How is that fair?
It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
And it's then that even I can see how that becomes like a carousel. There's no answer.
No, because I even try harder.
Yeah, exactly. It's just... no matter what I do, no matter what I say, the situation is still existing. Therefore, it's me. I can't do this. So we have those feelings, thoughts and beliefs as the child. They are so kind of shocking to us. They're so kind of profoundly resonate with who we are, that they then get locked into our kind of psyche, our mindset, and that then becomes what we call the inner child. And that inner child part of our mind is what we then carry into adulthood. So,
and that's really what I want to emphasize in this video. I can't overemphasize how important this is, because exactly as Alex said, it is in a different way, but the same thing. That part of your mind becomes like a filter. One of my clients called it a sausage machine. Everything goes through that. Everything goes through that.
Everything you experience as an adult.
Everything. The partners you choose, the job that you do, the way you live, the way you think about yourself is going through that filter that was developed by a child. That's why I believe, not perfect, but the analogy of the inner child works really, really well, because as in a way, that inner child is still in control. That little child is still trying to achieve the impossible.
To right the wrong, to make themselves good enough, to make everything fair, to get back what it believes it was owed because it didn't get the fairness when it was a child.
I think the lady said that she believed that she was missed out. Wouldn't it been better if my parents would have been wonderful? Wouldn't it been better if I'd have got what my friend got? Wouldn't it have been great if I did come home and milk and cookies was waiting for me? Mummy had her apron on and bounced me on her knee and told me how much she loved me. Then I would have been successful, wouldn't I? Because I would have had that grounding, that base, and I didn't have that, and therefore that's the reason why I'm not successful. So it's a blame culture.
It's blaming, and also, I guess, the sense like I'm a victim of my childhood circumstances or my past circumstances, and there's nothing I can do about it. A kind of a sense that it's almost like I'm now emotionally handicapped, and this is now I'm disadvantaged for the rest of my life. So I'm owed. I'm owed big time. Big time.
And who owes me? You see, what I often say to my client, well, who owes you this? I mean, here's another word I hear quite regularly. I am entitled. I am entitled now to something good happening in my life. And I often say to my client, well, who does that? See, and this is what they're looking for. They're looking for other people, other situations, other jobs. They're looking around. And then when they get something, it's never quite enough, is it? They always want something more. It's almost like chasing, when you see a dog chasing its tail, they're chasing, and this is what we call the carousel of despair, because they're chasing, wanting more, never satisfied, always thinking there's something else. If they was just perfect, for instance, here's a great example. How many of my clients, if I was just perfect, if I was just did everything right, then everyone would understand and they would treat me differently, and then I would get my just desserts. Then I would get what I'm deserving of. Then I would get what I'm entitled to. And so it's always this wanting, and because of the childhood experiences. And that's why this is such a good question, because it covers that childhood experiences. And I think she said on the question, I can't change it. Can't change it because it happened. And she's right. We can't change what happened. And here's the life lesson, the spiritual teaching. We can't change what happened, but you can change your perception to what happened. And that's the life lesson. So we can't change, if this lady's right, and she was brought up in a dysfunctional house, let's just say that, dysfunctional family, dysfunctional parent or parents, we can't change that. We can't wave a magic wand and make it right for her and retrace her steps and have the milk and cookies ready for her. We can't change that. But we can change the perception, because the perception is yours. Because I would say to her, well, actually, you're proving my point. You are proving that you are a spiritual being. You are proving that you are awesome. You are proving that you are divine. And the proof is, you got through that dysfunctional situation and relationship. You got through that. You came through. Now, what did you learn from that? What is it that you can do in your mind? What is it you can do in your belief system that situation will never occur and come to you ever again. How can you change that? And there's the spiritual lesson. And that's something you can do.
Yeah, and that really, that message, to me, it's so empowering. You know, it's like, it's now saying, as a child, you weren't in control of what was going on. You were just a child. Absolutely. As a youngster, you just weren't in control. That's reality. But now you are in control. Absolutely. Now you can take responsibility. Now you can authentically reflect on what happened and decide what you're going to do about it.
Can't change it.
Can't change it.
That's the key. You're right. You can't change it.
But you can say, well, you know, what have I learned? What will I make sure doesn't happen again? What's the authentic lesson here? What does this tell me about, say, the emotional perception of my parents, or the kind of practical upbringing I had, you know, reflecting on it authentically.
Can I give you the Taoist teaching on this? It's a wonderful teaching. The past does not define you unless you allow it to. Because the past is just that. It's the past. It's the past. I don't know how long ago, I don't know how old this lady is, but let's say it was 20, 30 years ago. It was 20 or 30 years ago. Why is she bringing the past into the present? Why is she making something that happened 20 or 30 years ago even relevant to what's happening in her life? Now, who is the only person that's doing that? She is. She is, in her perception, in her belief system. This is why all of these spiritual teachings is all about taking self-responsibility, understanding your beliefs, what you believe, why you believe it. See, she is actually almost reliving, here's the carousel of despair. She's reliving that experience every day of her life.
Yeah. In every relationship, in every way she thinks about herself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why doesn't she let it go? Because it's only her that's doing it. And here's why I notice when I work with dysfunctional families, and sometimes we do bring them together, the parents are horrified. It didn't even register with them what they were doing was wrong, because they were in an emotional situation. And you normally hear the story about, well, you didn't realize, you know, that I was going through problems, that we were being made redundant, that we were on the edge of divorce or whatever. The parents are horrified because they think they've had it from their from their children. The only one that's replaying this, it's like a movie playing in your mind. You're going over it, and you're so good with this movie. You've kind of owned the movie. The movie is now you, and it's not. It's the past 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It has no relevance unless you give it a relevance in your life right now. And this is such a profound, important spiritual teaching. Take control of your life. Live your life now. If you went through that dysfunctional type of childhood, well done. Congratulations. You should stick your chest out and you should say, I got through that. I got through that. My God, it was really difficult, David. Nobody will ever understand how difficult it was for you. We all have a story. We all have a story. I have a story. Alex has a story. You have a story. We got through it. We're here now. That's the proof of Wu Wei. This is the proof of how awesome you are. How divine that you are, that even that dysfunctional childhood, even the people that you depend on to nurture you, to nourish you, they couldn't for whatever reason. And even through that, you got through it. You did that. Why would you keep on going back over that old thing?
Well, David, I can kind of tell you why people do it. Because it's almost like, as an adult, you know, the being angry, being bitter, being resentful, being anxious, all these red light feelings, all these thoughts you have associated with what happened in the past. You know it's not good for you. You know, most people kind of know that it's not helping you live to your greatest potential. So logically, you know that. But then there's that part of you, which I guess is the inner child,
the inner child.
It's almost like it is so stubbornly holding on to it. So it's like, David, I really, really, really want to let go. I know it's not helping me at all. I want to move on, but it's like a rock. It's like a heavy rock. And it's almost like the inner child or that part of me thinks it's almost counterintuitive to let it go, because if I let it go, I'm letting go of all the past stuff. Like it never happened. Like, I want people to know that I had a bad childhood. I want people to know that how bad it was.
Why? If you do that role play, why do people need to know?
It's like, I want people to understand that if I make a mistake or if I fail, it's because I was disadvantaged. It's because I've had a poor start. Yeah. It's almost like my get out of jail card, but it's not imaginary. It's it's true. This is all the disadvantage I've had.
Exactly.
It's like if I let it go, it's like then I'm on the back foot again with my life. I've got no justification for...
I think you've explained it well. Do you recognize this? I call this the medals of honor. I'll give you a quick little story. I think I've said it before, but I hope you don't mind me repeating myself. I'll make it short. Many years ago, actually, somebody booked him for some acupuncture, just acupuncturists on their back. And when he arrived at the door, he was a really 70, 80-year-old man standing abrupt with a blazer and white flannels. And he had all his war medals on him, coming for an acupuncture treatment. Well, of course, when we went in for the consultation, I had to ask him. And he spent the whole of the session almost explaining to me what each of these medals were. And it was very interesting, and I enjoyed talking to him, and he got really involved, telling me, well, I got this on the battlefield here, and I got this for this, and I got this. And finally, I had to stop him. I said, if we don't stop now, we're not going to be able to do a treatment. And we did the treatment, and I've never seen that gentleman again. Don't even remember his name. But afterwards, I sat and I thought, why did he have to wear his medals coming for treatment on his back? He had to tell me, David, you're treating somebody a little bit different here. You're treating somebody with a big history.
Yeah.
I'm somebody a little bit special. I'm just a little bit different to the normal 70, 80-year-old man that's tweaked his back, is in the back garden.
This is my story. I want you to know my story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this is why I believe this lady can't get on with it. It's almost her story is defining her.
Yeah.
And she wants this
Hold
story.
on to that
and then
story,
when she looks at the story, as Alex said, she wants a couple of things from it. She wants people to realize what her story is, so they cut her a bit of slack. And there's a little excuse there. If things don't go well, she can kind of, to herself, even if she doesn't blame you, because a lot of my clients will say, I never tell anybody, but you're telling yourself. Yeah. Remember, self-talk is a conversation with the universe. You're telling yourself, well, I didn't quite do that. Well, it's because of my childhood. Well, it's because of this. And I believe this is one reason why they don't want to let go. Because if they let go, then they have to take responsibility. Yeah. And I often say, if this is you that you're talking about, and this is a big subject, I'm sure we'll return to this subject, and I think we've done another tape on it.
Yeah, we've done another video on the issues of injustice and fairness and old hair. So this is almost like a complementary video, looking more at the inner child stuff, but I will put a link to our original video, which is well worth a watch.
And I'm sure we'll go over it because it's such a big subject with many little facets that we have to talk about. But if this is you, or you can recognize anything that we're talking about, just quietly after the video, just ask yourself, close your eyes, drop your shoulders, take a breath, and just say, if I did choose to let that go, what would my life be like now? If I train myself not to even think about my childhood, if I just said, my life started today, my life started right now, what would your life be like? And obviously that's quite a big meditation, and maybe I'll do a meditation on that to do for you. But when I do that with my clients and take them through that little 5-minute meditation, they'll always say, well, it would be so much better. I'd be lighter. I'd be lighter.
That's the thing.
I'd walk better. And I say, well, why don't you do it? Why don't you do it? Why don't you live now authentically, truthfully, honestly? Why waste your life, your time, your effort, your sleeping? Why keep running this movie through your mind? Because it will never change. You can't change your past. Here's a spiritual teaching. Your past is the past. And I know we're going to talk about forgiveness. This is why I don't like the word forgiveness. And this is why. Because forgiveness puts you on a higher or a lower level. It's hierarchical. I much prefer this teaching of acceptance. If you just drop your shoulders and accept, just accept that that is your story. That's your story. That was your journey. And the evidence of how awesome you are is you have come through that story. You have come through. You have lived through it. You have learned your lessons. And that acceptance just lets it go. Forgiveness means I forgive her. I don't forgive her.
I'm judging them as having done something wrong. I mean, it's not, the point is we're not saying deny what happened or ignore what happened. We're not saying that at all. We're not saying, most importantly, it was okay that it happened.
No.
So that is not acceptance.
No. We're saying it was wrong and it was dysfunctional and it shouldn't have happened. Whether that's abuse, whether that's dysfunctional childhood, we are absolutely agreeing with you. We are saying it was wrong. It should not have happened. It is part of your journey. Accept that.
Okay.
Just accept that you've gone through it and now make a choice whether you want to leave it or you want to keep on carrying it with you. And that's the question. Do you want to have it like a rucksack on your back?
Or it feels like a heavy rocks that you're carrying around.
Yeah.
I know when you say that, David, and I just let go in that moment, it does. I do have a sense of lightness. But I know what happens is a few days later, a few hours later, a few weeks later, those feelings, the red light feelings associated with injustice, unfairness, bitterness, anger, disappointment, feeling not good enough, come back.
And you do the golden thread.
Because you do the golden thread and you get down to the inner child, which is saying, it's not fair. It's just not fair. It was not fair that it happened. What do we say to the inner child? Because it's the inner child is still holding on.
That part of your mind that we're calling the inner child is holding you on. And then that's the meditation for that day or that couple of days. And you say, okay, my darling, I would... As you know, for those of you, my clients, I would always want to call it a pet name. Okay, darling. Okay, sweetie. Okay, son. I hear you. Let's go through it. And you sit with your child in meditation. Now, what I think meditation is a way of focusing your mind. And you give yourself 10, 15, 20 minutes that you go through and the child still wants to talk about, but that's not fair. My mummy shouldn't have done that. My dad shouldn't have done that. My school shouldn't have done that. It was wrong to be bullied. And this is the life lesson. Here are the spiritual teachings that we are talking about. So here's, if you're a member of our community and you don't know the answer to the questions, this is your emotional education. Put it into the Facebook community. We'll all answer. Write me a letter, book a session, whatever you want to do, because that is the life lesson that you have to learn. You have to be able to answer the child. You have to give the child a reasonable answer. And as Alex says, they'll go away and chew it over for a couple of weeks. And if they don't accept it, quite rightly, they'll come back to you and they'll do a squealing piglet or a temper tantrum. It's not fair. It's not fair.
It's still not fair.
It's still not fair.
Still not right what happened.
All that means is they haven't accepted it or they will not accept it. Then, like any child, you go back and you give the child the information so that it can digest, it can speak to you, it can shout at you, it can argue with you. And what you are doing, we call this reparenting. And we've done.
I'll put a link to our reparenting videos.
So what you are doing now, you as the adult, to that part of you that's the inner child, You should now be acting in the way that the child wanted his physical or her physical parents to act.
Yeah.
Here's the key. Now, for a lot of my clients, guess what they do? They act in exactly the same dysfunctional way as their parents did to themselves.
Yeah.
And that's what breaks the circle.
Yeah.
Now, the child, that part of your mind will test you. My goodness. Chinese call it squealing piglets. I mean, it will take you to the edge because it knows in the past, when it's pushed you right to the edge, guess what? You've given. And it will push you and push you and push you. When you're doing this work, you should never give in. This is when it's okay to say, you know what? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out for you. And then you go and find out and Google it. Come into the community. Write a letter to us. Make a comment at the bottom and find the answer. Then go back and give the child the explanation. Give the child the answer to the question in the way that the physical parents should have done it. Because what you're doing there, I'm sorry to talk so much, but what you're doing there is you're giving the child what it wants. Attention, reassurance, validation. You're answering its questions. You're saying the most important thing. I am going to listen to you and I am going to answer your questions. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to be honest with you and then I'm going to go and find the answer and I'm going to come back. And even if you don't like the answer, I'm still going to give it to you. And we have to do this together as a team. And this is the reparenting. We talk more about that in that video. But this is very important. Do not act in the way that your parents acted with you. Act in a spiritual, sensitive, correct, patient, calm, peaceful way. And then your child, I'll tell you, if you do this, the child will test you because the child will go, all right, we'll see, we'll see. We'll see how good you are at this. And it will test you. And once you give in, once you go, oh, there you are, look, I've had enough. Oh, you're crap, you're rubbish, you're not good enough, you're stupid, you're lazy. How many times have you said these things to yourself? Oh, you're lazy, you're stupid, oh, you'll never get this, it's too far for you. Then the child goes, there you are, look, told you. And that's why this inner child work can be so powerful if it's done correctly.
And I think, David, that really this idea of fairness, unfairness, just, unjust, to forgive, to not forgive, to be entitled or not entitled,
right and wrong,
these black and white things is the pendulum, and it's very much how a child thinks. But to be honest, it's kind of like how we're taught life as a child. We're taught if you're a good girl or if you're a good boy and if you behave nicely, then you'll get a reward. There's the kind of entitlement set up. Or if somebody does something bad to you, then I'll make it better. There's the kind of righting the wrong, justice, injustice. Or they're behaving badly, don't do what they do. They'll get their comeuppance. We kind of teach our children these things. And I think in a way it's perpetuated by our society and our media, this idea of justice, injustice, forgiveness. If we do X, Y, and Z, then surely we're entitled to this. So we get these kind of black and white extreme teachings as a child. Our parents are trying to help us or trying to keep us on the straight and narrow, but it kind of polarizes our thinking, and then that's almost reinforced by our own thinking as adults and in our society. So we have to, I guess, when we're doing the reparenting work, we have to say, the life lesson is sometimes bad things will happen, and it's how you deal with it, not that a right will always necessarily be wronged, or other people aren't perfect, and if they're not, they don't behave well, it's because they've got their own problems, or they've got their own misunderstandings, that their behavior is not necessarily going to change, or they're not necessarily going to come back to you and ask for forgiveness, and that you know, the whole teaching of forgiveness is another big one, because a lot of people advocate this idea of forgiving yourself, forgiving other people. And as you say, that means that it creates like, who's the judge and jury? Who's the kind of criminal? Who determines who's the criminal and who's the one to say, right, you've done enough to make it okay? Acceptance is much more self-empowering, much more about self-responsibility, much more about, right, so what can I do about this now? What can I do? How can I move on with my life positively?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think everything you've said there is right, and I'm a little bit embarrassed to say the worst times when I was a parent, I brought up my child with this, right? Or when daddy's not pleased with you because you not sleeping, or daddy's pleased with you because you've done well at school, you know, and we use love as like a commodity, as like to praise or to withdraw, and we're not surprised. Why are we surprised that a child sees things in, as Alex was just explained, in black and white, good, bad, yes, no, right, wrong, because that's what we tell them, you know, and that's why the difference in the Wu Wei model that you're listening to and is this is all spiritual teachings that. What we're talking about there is not, you know, is there's a different way of doing it, and instead of trying to correct the old way, is to look at it through a different lens, to look at it through your spiritual self. And if you have come through a dysfunctional family, dysfunctional situations, my goodness, it is now your responsibility to be functional. That's your responsibility. Don't blame them. They wasn't functional. Because they wasn't functional doesn't mean to say that you have to now be dysfunctional as well. You don't have to copy them. You have to rise to your true self. You have to be at one with you. You have to love and nourish and cherish yourself. This is not selfish. Everything that your mom and dad said to you was not the truth. If you're a mom and dad, ask yourself, is everything you say to your children 100% the truth? It's not, because we are human beings and we're not perfect. And we should be teaching our children self-responsibility, to learn how to make decisions, to learn if they get something wrong, how they correct it, to learn it's okay not to be perfect. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay to get things wrong, to learn a lesson. That's not bad. Don't punish them if they get things wrong. Say, what did you learn from that? And if you make that slight tweak into the more to spirituality, and this is the message of Wu Wei, the spirituality is very practical. It's not kind of woo-woo. It's not all over the place. It's very practical, something you can use every day to live in your truth, to live honestly, to live with integrity, to have a clear path of what you're trying to achieve, and to understand that that has twists and turns as on that road. And then above all, to take self-responsibility. You're not perfect. And I think it'd be terribly boring to be perfect anyway. But
David, that analogy you used, this idea of cleaning the lens. I know in the past we've talked about this, and it's a Taoist teaching, cleaning the mirror. When we're born almost like as a pristine, clean, bright, sparkling, clear mirror, beautiful mirror that's reflecting all the light and goodness and beauty in the world from us and back out of us. It's a kind of positive interaction. As we grow as a child and into adulthood, we accumulate misunderstandings, faulty beliefs, wrong thinking,
dysfunctional behaviour.
Because we're experiencing challenging situations, things go wrong, bad things happen, and they all kind of cloud up the mirror. They cloud up the mirror, so the mirror is no longer bright, sparklingly clean and pristine. It's dull. It's everything in terms of the beauty and the positive energy of the world is getting dulled down because of this accumulation of inauthentic beliefs, inauthentic thoughts. If we can take self-responsibility to clean our own mirror, to do the inner child work, to sit with the inner child, reparenting the inner child, to give that child the life lessons about what happened to them in their childhood, what's happened to them in adulthood, you're then cleaning off and making sure that filter that you process everything of life through is pristine, is authentic, is sparkling again. And you start to flourish and grow. You're sparkling yourself, and you appreciate the magic in the world. You also can authentically deal with stuff when stuff goes wrong in a much better capacity, in a much better way.
So clean your mirror.
So take responsibility for cleaning your mirror. Do that loving, self-compassionate process with yourself. Do the inner child parenting work. As I say, watch the other video we've done on this topic.
But what I'd like to say on that, I say it on many videos, this is something you are. It's not something you have to learn.
Yeah.
You are already awesome.
Pristine, beautiful.
You were born that way.
Yeah.
Nobody can give that to you. And not even your parents can take that away from you. They can, as Alex they can cloud up the mirror. Of course they can, because you love your parents and you want to please your parents. Most children do. They want to please their parents. So the mirror can be clouded up, but you are still that pristine, awesome spirit inside. And you know that. Even if you keep telling yourself all these stuff we hear, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, I'm not worthy, I'm lazy, I'm stupid, I can't. You know that's not true. Really, sit quietly. Just think about, is that really true? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And I can say, after doing this job for nearly 40 years now, not one client has proved to me that that's true. They've proven to me that they've had dysfunctional childhoods, absolutely, but they haven't proven to me that that's doubted their spirit, their candle.
Or define them.
And it will only define them if you allow it to define you. That's the key. If you allow your childhood to define you, then it will, and it will carry on. But you can stop it now. You can stop it now and then go back, and everything that part of your mind gives you, then you deal with it. You deal with it. You've got lots of support here to deal with it. One little baby step at a time. You don't have to do it all in one go. There's no time limit. There's no race. You deal with it as and when it comes up correctly and in your wu wei. I can't say no more. In your flow. That's what wu wei means. Be in your flow. Effortless effort. Just living your life authentically. My goodness, there's so much to enjoy. Just relax and enjoy your life. And when problems come up, then deal with them.
Thank you, David. Well, I hope that's given you plenty to think about. If you can relate to any of the issues we've talked about today, or if you can relate to the inner child dialogue and conversation we've alluded to, please comment below, share your own stories, share your own experiences, tell us what resonated with you in this video. As you know, we produce new videos every week, so we'd love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell notifications button so you always get notifications when we've done new videos. And if you're interested in working one-to-one with David, wherever you are in the world, by video call, I'll also put a link in the video description below. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye-bye.